All right. So, Archana Di, you start then. Man meets the battle of life.
Okay, Raghav.
Yeah, start.
Man meets the battle of life in the manner most consonant with the essential quality most dominant in his nature. There are, according to the Sankhya philosophy, accepted in this respect by the Gita, three essential qualities or modes of the world energy and therefore also of human nature. Sattva, the mode of poise, knowledge and satisfaction. Rajas, the mode of passion, action and struggling emotion. Tamas, the mode of ignorance and inertia. Dominated by tamas, man does not so much meet the rush and shock of the world energies whirling about him and converging upon him as he succumbs to them, is overborne by them, afflicted, subjected, or at the most held by the other qualities. The tamasic man seeks only somehow to survive, to subsist so long as he may, to shelter himself in the fortress of an established routine of thought and action, in which he feels himself to a certain extent protected from the battle, able to reject the demand which his higher nature makes upon him, excused from accepting the necessity of farther struggle and the ideal of an increasing effort and dominated by Rajas, man flings himself into the battle and attempts to use the struggle of forces for his own egoistic benefit to slay, conquer, dominate, enjoy. Or helped by a certain measure of the sattvic quality, the Rajasic man makes the struggle itself a means of increasing inner mastery, joy, power, possession. The battle of life becomes his delight and passion, partly for its own sake, for the pleasure of activity and the sense of power, partly as a means of his increase and natural self development. Dominated by Sattva, man, in the midst of the strife for a principle of law, right, poise, harmony, peace, satisfaction. The purely sattvic man tends to seek this within, whether for himself alone or with an impulse to communicate it when one to other human minds, but usually by a sort of inner detachment from or else an outer rejection of the strife and turmoil of the active world energy. But if the sattvic mind accepts partly the rajasic impulse, it seeks rather to impose this poise and harmony upon the struggle and apparent chaos to vindicate a victory for peace, love, and harmony over the principle of war, discord, and struggle. All the attitudes adopted by the human mind towards the problem of life either derive from the domination of one or other of these qualities or else from an attempt at balance and harmony between them.
One page para going into detail about Sattva, Rajas, Tamas. This is very interesting and we will discuss that a little bit in detail because all sorts of questions arise. Tamas is the principle of darkness and sloth and inactivity. So one wonders why did the divine create this tamas? So that also we will discuss. Then there is the rajas. Rajas is the principle of energy, movement, okay, push, desire, motives. This is where you start acting. So that is to counter the tamasic urge. Then Rajas also is too much inclined only with satisfaction of desires. But then you have to, when you are completely in your vital, you are naturally not in control of your emotions and your being. So wisdom should come in, and that's the sattvic. So there is sattva, rajas, and tamas. And Shabda is describing this. And he's also reminding you again and again that the universe and the individual are connected, and whatever is there in the universe is there also in the man, in individual. So we will read this and we will try and understand the principles and why they exist at all. I am reading from the beginning. Man meets the battle of life in the manner most consonant with the essential quality most dominant in his nature. Okay, there are two things. First of all, there is a battle of life. Is it possible for any man to pass through life without a battle? It would be possible if there were absolute harmony. But there is no harmony in the physical world. Why? The question arises. Remember the principle of one becoming the many. And when the one from the highest level becomes the many at the lowest level, there is multiplicity and there are dualities. So when there are dualities, there are opposites. And when there are opposites, there is disharmony. So that's why the battle of life is necessary. Okay, it's a very, very logical step by step. When you see it is like that. That's why I keep reminding you, remember the basic principles. Then so many things become easy to understand. The basic principles, as I said, at the highest level, oneness. At the lowest level, multiplicity. At the highest level, formlessness. At the lower level, limited forms. At the highest level, light. At the lowest level, darkness. At the highest level, perfect harmony and knowledge. At the lower level, disharmony and ignorance. Okay. So these principles, if one remembers, then and the gradation, the subtlest of substance at the highest level, the grossest of substance at the lower level. Keep these things in mind and you will understand why there is battle of life necessary here. So when there is a battle of life, naturally you have to you side on one side or the other side, and then you have to develop by samatha an equality towards them. That's a way to climb out of the disharmony of life. So man meets the battle of life in the manner most consonant with the essential quality most dominant in his nature. He can be tamasic, he can be rajasic, and he can be sattvic. So he meets the battle of life with that instrument of nature which is most prominent in him. Shyamda is using the word consonant, which is an interesting word which you must remember. Sound. Okay. So consonant means those two sounds which are in perfect harmony. Consonant. In other words, harmony. Okay. They are vibrating to the same tune. You know that phenomenon, huh? If you have two tanpuras or two sitars, if you vibrate one without touching the other also starts vibrating in ideal conditions, not in no, in ideal conditions, yes. If you hit one, the other also starts vibrating. Okay. So this is what he is saying. So what are these dominant features in his nature? There are, according to the Sankhya philosophy, accepted in this respect by the Gita. The Gita also accepts the principles of Sattva, Rajas, Tamas. They are known as the gunas, okay, the modes of the self. There, your guna is quality, but even in English you can see the quality, the characteristic of the thing. That is a quality. Quality does not necessarily mean something positive all the time. It means a characteristic. So, there are, according to the Sankhya philosophy, accepted in this respect by the Gita because it does not accept in other respects. Okay, but in this respect it agrees, Gita, because when you go above into the higher planes of consciousness, the Gita does not agree with the Sankhya philosophy. We will come to that when we come later on in other chapters. At this level, Gita agrees that yes, in the physical world, level 1, there is tamas, rajas and sattva. So, now we look at the qualities and what they mean. There are, according to Sankhya philosophy, accepted in this respect by the Gita, 3 essential qualities or modes of the world energy and therefore also of human nature. So note that whatever is there in the world energy is the universal, but therefore, okay, also of human nature, very clearly is establishing the relation between the universal nature and the individual. Again, to understand this phenomena, think of the sea, which is universal, and the wave, which is individual. The wave is an individual formation of water of the vast universe of sea. The wave cannot exist without the sea. The sea can exist without the wave. But the wave has to depend, the individual has to depend on the universe in every way. So, the world energy and therefore also of human nature, sattva. He has added the word therefore, very clear. Okay, there is a dependence of the individual, and the individual need not be only man. It can be also animal. It can be also insect. It can be down to the lowest level. So now he is describing sattva.
Rangada, one
Yeah.
question. This Sattva, Rajas, Tamas is only from Sankhya, or else also it is discussed?
No, the principle of sattva, rajas, tamas is initiated by Sankhya. Okay, it is initiated by Sankhya, and the Gita accepts it, and many other systems also accept. Even Srivamdeva accepts. Okay, the Advaita also accepts at the lower level. Yeah, and remember that Gita is part of Advaita. Okay, it is part of Vedanta. Yeah, so it is initiated by the Sankhya. Okay.
One day, Rangada, we would like to have a little more insight into the different philosophies, the main points, because it gets a bit mixed up. So sometimes, whenever you have time, if you can explain the main points of the philosophy, so that.
Okay, but then you have to go into Indian philosophy. That's a huge subject. And Indian philosophy consists of 9 different ways of looking at reality.
Yeah.
Anyway, I've noted what you have said, and
Yeah.
we'll see that. Okay, sure.
Because Gita also touches upon all the philosophies, no, mostly.
Yeah, it takes a little of everything. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
It doesn't agree with anyone. It has its own philosophy. Yeah, that's right. Quite. That's why Srivamdeva calls the Gita synthetic. Okay. Many philosophies are
Even
not. Yeah. Pardon?
even in Life Divine, Sherwin has touched almost all the philosophies, and
Yes. No,
yes.
that's why the synthesis is there. He identifies the synthetic things. Even in the Gita, he has told you that, if you remember. The Veda
Yes,
are
yes.
synthetic. The Upanishads are synthetic. Then the Gita also is synthetic. But the Sankhya is not synthetic. Okay? It's got very clear views. And Srivamdava's philosophy also is synthetic. Okay? So many of the other philosophies are not synthetic. They lean on only one side. Okay? Yeah. So,
Rangada, one
yeah,
question regarding this gunas, whether a stone too has these three gunas?
absolutely.
A stone too
Exactly.
has.
Yes, that's what he's going to tell you. But the thing is that these 3 are there everywhere together, everywhere. But dominant, you see, very clearly Sam is saying, most dominant in his nature. Somebody will be very sattvic, somebody will be very rajasic, somebody will be very tamasic. Okay, and even in the physical world, it applies to insects also. And this is very interesting. We will discuss that at the end of this paragraph. Everything in the physical world, including, okay, is a very interesting thing. Even animals are sattvic, rajasic, tamasic. Even your food is sattvic, rajasic, tamasic. Okay.
Yeah.
Even your will, okay, even your action, everything is full of these 3. Why? Because matter, life, and mind are all mixed together in this physical world. Na? They are always together. In matter, life and mind don't seem to be there, but they are there hidden. Okay. In life, and all the insects, they are a combination of matter and life. And man also is a combination of all 3, matter, life, and mind. So all the 3 principles are there. Okay. Tamas corresponds to matter. Rajas corresponds to the life, the vital, the energy. And the sattva corresponds to the mind. Corresponds. Okay, it's a general principle, universal principle, which is present in these 3 forms. Okay, so yes, they are always together, even in the stone. Okay, yeah, there is, and that's exactly what I was going to discuss. Why I started with that? Why should the divine create tamas, which is something so negative? Okay, if you think about it, you will see that there is a very good reason for that. Okay, since you have raised the question, very briefly I'll touch upon it. Okay, when the one is becoming the many, when the static, the permanent is becoming the impermanent in the physical world, there is movement. Huh? There is movement, but the subtlest of substance becomes the grossest of substance. Light becomes darkness. Now, darkness means absolutely nothing in it. It's a shunyam. So, how to get out of that shunyam? And why at all should he create this? Because in the physical world, if there is no stability, tamas is a principle of stability. Don't think of tamas only as inactivity and laziness. Think of it as stability. It's the same thing, isn't it? And if it is not, there is no stability in the physical world, how are you going to deal with things? Okay, even everything will go on changing form, and that's true because as you keep rising in the scale of existence, form becomes less and less rigid, less and less stable. Look at ice, it is stable. Look at water, it is not stable at all. Look at air, it is even less stable. So stability is absolutely essential for dealing practically with things in the physical world. That's why tamas is very justified. Okay. If tamas is not there, nothing will be permanent, everything will be moving. So how can you deal practically with things which keep on moving and changing form? So tamas is very, very necessary for stability. But then stability means again no change. And if no change is there, but you want to go up, so you have to introduce the principle of change, the principle of rajas, okay, the principle of movement, energy. That's why rajas comes into the picture. But rajas, as we said, is with energy but without knowledge. Energy is going on, it goes on producing things and acting, but without any knowledge. But therefore, knowledge also has to come in. This also we have discussed many times, that when there is movement, the movement is without consciousness, normally at the physical level. The wind comes and it helps, but it also destroys. There is no choice. It doesn't have any consciousness. It goes on. The floods come. The floods also help, but the floods also destroy. Okay. The fire also helps, but the fire also destroys. So there has to be wisdom. What is to be destroyed and what is not to be destroyed? What is to be helped and what is not to be helped? Therefore, wisdom has to come in. So these are the three principles. There is matter corresponding to tamas. There is rajas, which forces the stability and inactivity of matter to force it to start becoming active. Okay, so that's the principle. Then the activity also is without any knowledge. Knowledge has to come in, therefore mind comes up. So out of the tamas comes out rajas, and out of rajas comes out sattva. This is the principle of the three, and this applies only to level 1. Okay, but at the second level and third level also they are there in different proportions. That is there. These are absolutely the fundamental principles even in the Satchidananda. Okay, so that we will see later on. So now he is discussing the sattva, rajas, tamas and their characteristics. So
Rangana, one more question, please.
yeah, tell me.
Acha, only the human being who can change from a tamasic person to a rajasic or a sattvic, but not in the animal world or in the matter, right?
I think you are right. I think you are right. Because the animal can't do yoga, and yoga is absolutely essential for change of consciousness. So the animal cannot do yoga, cannot become something else. It has to become man and stop being an animal. And that is possible because the divine presence is there in it. That's the evolution, the individual evolution. You're
Individual.
quite right.
Yes.
Okay, it has to change. And that is the reason why also man, Sri Aurobindo says in Life Divine again and again, if man cannot become the Superman, he has to stop being and a new species will come up. So man has to first of all change his and become a Superman to be able to change his consciousness to that level. So, and there's a gradation also between them. There is man, there is a yogi, and then there is a Superman. So you can say it is that. But the potentiality of changing is there in everything. Even in matter, the potentiality of becoming divine is there. It's a question of how much. That's a good question. The potentiality is almost a 0.0001 in matter, but as it keeps coming slowly, the 0.001 goes on changing and becomes more and more prominent, more and more prominent. That's why the animal is more active than the, and there is more consciousness in the animal than in matter. Then in the higher animals, there is more consciousness than in the lower animals. Man is more conscious than the animal. Finally, the yogi is 10 times more conscious than the human being. And finally, it ends in the Superman, who is totally conscious. Okay? Yeah. So that's right. It's true.
And so, sometimes we see the life coming out of like totally a stone, and then you see that, yeah, there is a small plant which has grown there. So is it because of that, or because there is this possibility of change
Yes. That's
in the matter? That is why we can see sometimes in a very hard substance also there is life which is coming out.
That's right. And that's exactly what we're saying. The power of life is fantastic. It's absolutely stunning. Okay, I'll give you two examples. It is forcing matter to produce life. If you have seen in a wall sometimes, a very small hole also is there in a wall.
Hmm.
Suddenly you start, plant is coming out of it.
Yeah.
And what is, there is no water, there is no light there, and yet it comes out. Okay.
Yeah, that's
I
what.
have a
Yeah.
big, yeah. I have a big problem on my terrace. There is a banyan tree which is growing in the terrace, and 10 times I have told them to uproot it, but it keeps coming back again and again.
Yeah. Same thing with me also.
Yes. So that's the power of life.
But it is not the wall or the matter which is becoming the plant. It is a seed there which is becoming the plant, right?
Exactly. It is the principle of life which is seeking an opportunity. It finds that opportunity in that hole in the wall and comes up. That's right.
It's not the stone which is becoming a plant. It is just a seed of a plant which is in the stone which is coming out.
Yeah, that okay. But the seed, where is the seed? That's right. But the seed is the potential, no? The seed is the potential of life.
Yes.
After all, the seed is matter. The seed is matter, isn't it? You are thinking of the seed, but the seed also is matter. So in a way, it is stone. Hello.
Yes, Rangada.
So we have to see it in
The seed is matter, but the stone is not the seed.
no, no. There also there is a gradation. But the
Yes.
seed is a stone with the potentiality of life. The stone is matter without the potentiality of life. Okay, that's it. And it's true, it's very interesting because Srivno's language for the supramental also, we come back to this principle. Suppose I take a seed, okay, it has got the potential to become a tree. Agree?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
But now I do two things with that seed. Okay. I put it on my table permanently and I put it in the ground. So which one will become the tree?
The ground one, of course.
Exactly. So in other words, the universe also has got an effect and it has to create the right conditions. Okay. So that is what you will see in Srivno's description of the supermind. Okay. The supermind is there, but the right conditions have to come for it. That potentiality and actuality. He uses the words potentiality and actuality. The potential need not necessarily be actual. You follow now what
Yes.
I'm saying?
Yes. Yes. Yes, Rangada.
Exactly. The potentiality is there in the ground. The seed in the ground is potential. But the seed on the table is not, it is only potential, not actual. There is a gradation between potentiality and actuality. Yeah, these are very interesting things. And that's why when we go to Srimdo's language, you will see that all these subtle differences are brought out. It's very interesting. Okay, let's get back to our text. See, when we discuss one problem, another problem comes up. And when we discuss another problem, something else comes up. So it's endless. At the mental level, it's endless. All right. So we come back now to the Gita. Three essential qualities and modes of the world energy and therefore of human nature. First, sattva. And what is sattva? The mode of poise. Other places they use the word balance. Okay? Perfectly balanced. knowledge, and satisfaction. Satisfaction is an implication of a little bit of ananda, a calm, quiet ananda. Not a vital pleasure, but a calm, quiet ananda. Then there is the rajas, the mode of passion, action, and struggling emotion. So energy. I like to usually put it as energy and power and movement. Okay. Then you have tamas, the mode of ignorance, no consciousness at all, no knowledge, and inertia. Okay. So inertia. So dominated by tamas, man does not so much. Certainly, is discussing only man. But as I told you, probably today we can't do it, but next time we will see how the Gita distinguishes these three in everything, in food, in animals, even in your will, your consciousness. Everything has these three principles. It's a very interesting discussion. Okay, we'll see that. So, dominated by tamas, man does not so much meet the rush and shock of the world energies whirling about him and converging upon him as he succumbs to them. He is overborne by them, afflicted, subjected, or at the most helped by the other qualities. The tamasic man seeks only somehow to survive, to subsist, so long as he may, to shelter himself in the fortress of an established routine of thought and action in which he feels himself, to a certain extent, protected from the battle, able to reject the demand which his higher nature makes upon him, excused from accepting the necessity of farther struggle and the ideal of an increasing effort and mastery. Huge sentence describing tamas. He chooses not to change. Okay. And if you remember in the synthesis, in one chapter, very early chapter, Sri Aurobindo describes the characteristic energy of the bodily life. If you remember. Then he describes the characteristic energy of mental life. And then he describes the characteristic energy of spiritual life. And there in the characteristic energy of bodily life, he says, somehow to survive. Okay? Survival. Okay? Somehow to keep himself in existence and reproduce himself and multiply himself. These are the. So Srenda is repeating the same thing in different words here. Tamasic man seeks only somehow to survive. Okay? That's the main thing. To survive, not change, but survive. When the mental comes in, he wants to change, but not the tamasic man. He is very, very comfortable with his status quo. He doesn't want to change. That is the reason why tradition and habits at the individual level as well as the social level, at the collective level, so difficult to get over. Okay, look at what's happening today in Islam. Okay, so they just don't want to change and they don't want to change their views of things. Okay, so of course it is there everywhere. It's why only them. Okay, everywhere. Even in our Indian systems, in Punjab and other places, these khaaps, okay, they don't allow intermarriage. Okay, so that they stick to tradition. Tradition is very, very strong, and tradition is tamasic mainly. You want to continue your tradition, don't want to change it very easily. So the tamasic man seeks only somehow to survive, to subsist, so long as he may, to shelter himself in a fortress of an established routine of thought. No change in thought. He just subscribe to the normal social thinking and action in which he feels himself to a certain extent protected from the battle. If he is in his comfort zone and he listens to what society is saying, he is protected. But the moment he wants to go out of society, there is a problem. In the fortress of established routine of thought and action. That's tradition. That's habits, social habits that don't change, in which he feels himself to a certain extent protected from the battle, able to reject the demand which his higher nature makes upon him, excused from accepting the necessity of farther struggle and the ideal of an increasing effort and mastery. I refer you back to Socrates, if you remember. Socrates was teaching his students, his children, to think, okay, and not to subscribe to the normal things, to question everything. And what was the reaction of society? You are corrupting the youth, so you need to die. You can't change these social customs. So they gave him poison to drink. Okay? So society doesn't want to change. In fact, in Savitri, he says, man is in love with his ignorance and his limitations. I'm using my own words, but that's what he says. He is in love with his ignorance. He doesn't want to change. That's the principle of tamas. Okay? But evolution is there, and evolution will force tamas to change. So therefore, rajas has to come into the picture. Life has to come in. Tamas is matter doesn't want to change. It is absolutely static. But if there is static, there can be no evolution. So, but evolution is a principle. Okay? The divine has come down and put himself into matter. Therefore, the push to action is there, and then it comes out in small bits. And first, Shiva says, unicellular creatures come out. Okay, that's the first expression of rajas in matter. Then slowly, slowly, larger organisms form, and more consciousness comes in, and more energy and kinetic movement comes in. Dominate now. I'm reading the next one. Dominated by rajas, okay, man flings himself into the battle. In the beginning, he is protecting himself from the battle. He doesn't want to change. But now, when rajas comes in, look at the words. He flings himself into the battle and attempts to use the struggle of forces for his own egoistic benefit. It's true that he wants only the individual first, okay? But later on, Srimdo says that it should be for society also. So, helped by a certain measure of the sattvic quality, the Rajasic man makes the struggle itself a means of increasing inner mastery, joy, power, possession. So, these are the characteristics of the vital man. He wants to master everything. He wants to have enjoyment, joy. He wants to have power. That's why there is so much of competition also among human beings. And he wants to possess. That's very clear. Whatever you see, you want to possess. Okay? Whether it be a human being or whether it be an object or whether it be a TV or a mobile or whatever, you want to possess it. That's the principle of rajas. Then the battle of life becomes his delight and passion, partly for its own sake, for the pleasure of activity and sense of power, partly as a means of his increase and natural self-development. Here I'll mention something very interesting because we are doing the Gita. Okay. Kurukshetre, Dharmakshetre, Samaveta, Yuyutsava. Okay, the very first line. Okay. And Shivda has translated that. Okay. Very interesting. He says, he uses the word, they are all gathered there for the holiday of a fight. So I looked at the Sanskrit words. There is no suggestion of a holiday anywhere. So I was wondering, what is he saying? I can't understand what he's saying. Okay. Then later on, I came across another passage which made it very clear why he is translating as holiday of a fight. The courageous man, the adventurous man, enjoys a challenge. Okay, you can see that one can accept very easily. Enjoy a challenge. Okay, so this is what he meant by a holiday of a fight. The Kshatriya takes pleasure in a challenge. Okay? So holiday of a fight. So Shyamda is using the word also here. He is saying the same thing, explaining the battle of life becomes his delight. It's a holiday for him. And passion, partly for its own sake, for the pleasure of activity and the sense of power, partly as a means of his increase and natural self-development. So naturally, when non-activity becomes activity, he will get experience and he will benefit and he will grow. So you grow from non-activity to activity, from the body to life. Okay, and life is always seeking. Look at these four words: mastery, joy, power, and possession. This is the characteristic of the vital. Then finally he comes to the sattva principle. Okay, the sattva. Dominated by sattva, man seeks in the midst of the strife, the battle of life, strife, for a principle of law right, poise, harmony, peace, and satisfaction. In the vital, there is no satisfaction. Even if there is satisfaction, you satisfy your desire, very briefly you will enjoy, but very briefly also it will go away. And if it is no satisfaction, it will produce the opposite. That's why you have to get rid of both satisfaction, vital satisfaction, as well as vital grief. You have to get rid of both. Because if there is satisfaction, there is bound to be grief. Why? When you don't get your desire. And when you get your desire and you are satisfied, you will not get it all the time. So therefore grief also is there. They imply each other. Again, we come back to the principle of the dualities. Okay. So look at the description. Law. There should be nothing unlawful or haphazard. It should not be casual. It should not be whimsical. There should be a law. Okay. There should be a principle of action. It should be based on some stable principle. Right. It should be right. Poise, balance, harmony, peace, and satisfaction. This is what the mental man is seeking all the time. The purely sattvic man tends to seek this within himself, whether for himself alone or with an impulse to communicate it. That means he wants to give it to society also. When one to other human minds. So when you have got the principle of sattva well established in yourself, like a yogi does, then he wants to give it to others also. When one to other human minds. What is one? The principle of sattva. When you are in control of sattva, you would like to give it to others because you see them suffering in the vital. But usually by a sort of inner detachment from or else an outer rejection of the strife and turmoil of the active world energy. So there are two ways of doing it. Okay? One is a sort of inner detachment. This is the principle of getting rid of your stop identifying yourself with your body, mind, life. Inner detachment. I am not the body. I am not the vital. I am not the mind. The thoughts are occurring in me. I am not the thoughts. So start watching your thoughts. Start watching your emotions. A slow difference comes up. A gulf forms between the watcher and the watched. Okay. So then you get free one day. You become absolutely free from, or there is another one, or the outer rejection of the strife and turmoil of the active world energy. That's the ascetic tendency. The ascetic rejects the physical world very with force. Okay, he rejects the whole physical world entirely because it's only movement, and movement is not stability at all. So there are two ways they are describing of how to get rid of the and get sattva. One is by an inner attachment, inner detachment rather, and the other is the outer rejection. Okay, outer rejection, inner detachment and outer rejection. In the inner detachment, you go on watching the actions of the vital actions of the body. Also, you are just watching of the strife and turmoil of the active world energy. But if sattvic mind accepts partly the rajasic principle, it seeks rather to impose this poise and harmony upon the struggle and apparent chaos, to vindicate a victory for peace, love, and harmony over the principle of war, discord, and struggle. So, when a little bit of total sattvic, you detach yourself from the world. But when there is a little bit of activity also, that's what is describing. Huh? So you want to communicate that need and necessity of harmony to the others. Then you want to stop the war. Otherwise, if you are doing only in the sattvic way, you are not interested. You realize that the war is something which is bound to happen and you don't bother too much about it. But if you are also a little bit of rajas is there, you want to stop the war also. So it's interesting, he's giving you a gradation. Pure sattvic, but pure sattvic does not exist in the world. They are always together. That he will tell you in the next para. They always go together, but in different proportions. Either you can be more sattvic, or you can be more rajasic, or you can be more tamasic. But all the three are always there. Okay? But if the Sattvic man accepts partly the Rajasic principle, it seeks rather to impose this poise and harmony upon the struggle and apparent chaos, to vindicate a victory for peace, love, and harmony over the principle of war, discord, and struggle. All the attitudes adopted by the human mind towards this problem of life either derive from the domination of one or other of these qualities, or else from an attempt at balance and harmony between them. So, if you are a pakka principle of tamas, you can be a materialist. Okay? If you are a man dominated by rajas, okay, then in the field of yoga, you can be a moralist. Okay, you don't want the evil and you want the good. Not that you will succeed, but that is it. Then, when you are a spiritual person, you want to go beyond the sattva, rajas, tamas. So that's what's in this thing here. All the attitudes adopted by the human mind towards the problem of life either derive from the domination of one or other of these qualities. That's why we discussed just now. If you are dominated by the principle of tamas, which is matter, you can become material. Or else from an attempt at balance and harmony between them. Or you can become the moralist or you can become the yogi. Okay. Depends on which level you are. There can be a little confusion in what I've just now said, because the materialist is full of energy. Okay, so, but I am talking of the principle only. Okay, I am talking of the principle. So, what's the time? 32. So, it is a very interesting paragraph. And next time, if you remind me, we will discuss very briefly how food can be Rajasic, Tamasic, Sattvic. Even animals can be Rajasic, Tamasic, Sattvic. Even your will can be, and even your gift, dana. Dana also can be, the way you give a gift can be Sattvic, Tamasic, Rajasic. Okay. The Gita discusses this in detail. Tarika, you have read the Gita, no? And others also have read the Gita. You remember how this principle is used? All the three.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
right. It's a very interesting discussion. Okay, we stop here today because we have got only 2 minutes. So next time, but there comes also a stage.
Merci beaucoup.
But there comes forward.